This presentation will address Jerome Bruner's Instructional Theory of Cognitive Development and Discovery Learning as a part of the IDT 7074 Instructional Theory Resource Project. Jerome Bruner is considered a key figure in the cognitive revolution of learning and instruction. Bruner believed the most important outcome of cognitive development was thinking, and that the purpose of education was to facilitate experiences that create independent thinkers. He believed that any child could learn any subject if it was presented in the appropriate way. The most appropriate way, according to Bruner, was through discovery learning. Given the close relationship between Bruner's understandings of cognitive development and instruction, both will be briefly discussed in the first portion of this resource. Jerome Bruner was born in New York, New York in 1915 and died June 5, 2016 at the age of 100. Bruner was born blind but received a surgery when he was 2 that restored some of his eyesight. Bruner received his undergraduate degree from Duke University and went on to get his master's and doctorate degrees in psychology from Harvard. His work at Harvard advanced psychology beyond the popular perspectives of behaviorist psychologists during that time period. During World War II, Bruner worked with military intelligence as an expert on psychological warfare and examined propaganda. He later returned to Harvard in 1945 to teach as a professor of psychology. He went on to direct the Center for Cognitive Studies and later taught at Oxford, the New School for Social Research, and New York University School of Law. During the 1960s, Dr. Bruner served as an advisor to President Kennedy and President Johnson, where he impacted educational policy and programs such as Head Start. He wrote several books during his lifetime and left a lasting mark on America's educational system. Bruner's early work was greatly influenced by Gestalt psychologists Jean Piaget and Lev Vygotsky. Bruner's cognitive theory of instruction is made up of 4 primary concepts: predisposition, structure, sequence, and reinforcement. Predisposition refers to a learner's inclination to behave in a certain way. Bruner specifically addresses predispositions that can influence students' learning and development, particularly predispositions that prevent them from exploring alternative approaches. Bruner's theory supports the idea that learning and teaching happens in environments where opportunities are providers for learners to explore new ways of thinking and knowing. Bruner suggests that these opportunities should be provided by catering to learners' interest and curiosity, making sure that if a learner makes a mistake, learning will not suffer, and giving learners direction towards learning goals. Another critical component of Bruner's theory is structure. Bruner proposed 3 systems or representations by which learners structure the world. These systems are referred to as enactive representations, iconic representations, and symbolic representations. Enactive representations can be defined as knowing by doing. Enactive representation is the most concrete form of representation. Iconic representation is the organization of information through images. The final mode of representation is symbolic representation, or the use of symbolic systems such as words or mathematic symbols. Symbolic representation is the most abstract mode of representation. According to Bruner, these 3 modes of representation move from enactive through iconic to symbolic, but remain with us forever. The basic task is to orchestrate the 3 kinds of representation so that we can link the child from doing to imagining what he's done, and finally to symbolization. Bruner believed that these modes of representation were not age-dependent. Rather, the achievement of all 3 modes of representation could be influenced by environmental factors. In essence, Bruner supported the inside-out ideas of traditional development theory by addressing the probability that learners would progress through the 3 modes of representation, but also supported the idea of outside-in development, or the influence of culture and social context, that allowed these modes to be flexible based on learners' understanding rather than invariant stages based on age. Sequence is the 3rd concept that Bruner emphasized in his cognitive development theory. Bruner, like many instructional theorists, believed that the presentation of information to learners is critical. He also believed that any domain of knowledge could be presented through each of the 3 types of representation, or modes. However, the educator or designer was responsible for assessing learners' prior knowledge as well as their dominant modes of thinking. Furthermore, Bruner's theory of instruction stressed the importance of guiding learners through problems by allowing them to explore new ideas or skills while making connections to prior knowledge. Learners should be given the opportunity to take small practice steps and revisit information to gain deeper understandings and build even stronger connections using new modes of representation. This sequence can be seen in Bruner's spiral curriculum strategy. The spiral curriculum addressed the importance of sequence by providing a way for designers and educators to develop curriculum that focuses and builds on basic ideas, moving them from enactive, iconic, and symbolic representations. This strategy supports the process of teaching learners the same concepts year after year at increasing levels of complexity. Reinforcement is the final concept of Bruner's cognitive theory of instruction and refers to viewing information through a lens of success and failure rather than rewards and punishment. Bruner's understandings about success and failure support ideas of intrinsic motivation and encourage instructors and parents to move away from rewarding or punishing learners for solving problems. Bruner's theory supports the independent learner as one who rewards and punishes himself by judging the adequacy of his efforts. An important component to Bruner's theory in instruction was the role of culture and interaction. As mentioned previously, Bruner's theory of cognitive development, particularly the modes of representation, are influential in the development and learning process. Interactions include interactions with others and interactions with culture. Bruner believed that educational settings and instruction should be created based on what is known about cognitive development. Therefore, Bruner introduced a learning theory that he believed provided learners with the interactions and tools necessary to promote true learning through discovery. According to Bruner, discovery is an essential component for learning and development, but is not something that happens at random. Rather, discovery learning is focused on new ways of looking at information through guided inquiry, reflection, and contrasting. In order for this type of learning to be effective, students must have a solid knowledge base. Students need to know what needs to be learned about certain components and what is going to be done with the new information or theory that emerges through discovery. Students learn by experimenting, manipulating objects, interacting, and asking questions. This theory allows learners to actively seek information and engage in the learning process to facilitate deeper understandings, while also promoting intrinsic rewards through the intrinsic motivation provided during active learning structured around students' curiosity. While the teacher does not give students all of the information to answer their questions or hypotheses, the teacher should present information to students in a way that will move learners towards a discovery by using mental models that are appropriate for the learners and their culture. Teachers should also model the inquiry process and ask questions that help learners build their own mental models during the discovery process. As you can see, there are several advantages and disadvantages to discovery learning. I'd like to close with this quote from Jerome Bruner. "We teach a subject not to produce little living librarians on that subject, but rather to get a student to think for himself, to consider matters, to take part in the process of knowledge getting. Knowing is a process, not a product." And I think this quote really does a great job of explaining Jerome Bruner and his theory of instruction. Thank you.